New reports coming out that the Kansas City Chiefs anticipate to make Patrick Mahomes the richest player in NFL history again. We'll discuss if these reports are legit as well. We're going to focus in on Chris Jones. He's on a recruiting tour. He's trying to bring back Frank Clark and Mike Pennell. We'll see how likely that is. But before we do get in all of that, please be sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chiefs related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. Now, one of the major headliners throughout this whole offseason was watching these quarterbacks get paid. Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and now we anticipate guys like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert to break the bank. And Chiefs Kingdom has been loving it because as every quarterback gets paid, you just look at Patrick Mahomes' contract and you're like, it's a steal. We are loving life. It is beautiful. And we love that Patrick Mahomes is our guy at this kind of rate and that he loves to be a Kansas City Chief. Well, now new reports are coming out that Pro Football Talks' Mike Florio mentioned that the Kansas City Chiefs anticipate to make Patrick Mahomes the highest paid quarterback again by week 1. And let's just focus on Patrick Mahomes' contract right now. Because back in 2020, Patrick Mahomes signed a 10-year deal worth a little less than $500 million, and it basically secured him financially and showing that he wants to be a Kansas City Chief for the long term as well as win championships. That's what Patrick Mahomes has mentioned throughout his tenure. He hasn't really been focused in or dialed in on the money like that. Actually, Cole with How About Those Chiefs has a video on his page showing back, I think it was like 9 months ago, last summer, of Mahomes just stating that, saying it's awesome to see these guys getting paid, but at the end of the day, he's not going to be remembered for the money. He's going to be remembered for the rings, and he wants to put the team in the best position to do that. So I know it's been 9 months, but for me to say Mahomes is going to retract from that statement is highly unlikely. And also, if we just focus on Mike Florio just a little bit as well, this report is coming almost exactly a week from last week when he was saying Patrick Mahomes is criminally underpaid and has readjusted the quarterback market and it should have never happened, yada, 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 things like that. And that's where things get kind of weird because now you're saying, oh, you anticipate him to become one of the highest paid quarterbacks ever. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I think you're basically throwing a dart at the board and hoping you connect. Because, yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs and Mahomes people, they can be working on a deal. It could be highly likely. Because at the end of the day, Mahomes is worth a lot more than what his contract is asking for. And if Mahomes wants a re-up, he deserves it. But at the end of the day, too, it's interesting to see how that unfolds into his contract as well. Because he's going into year 3 of that contract. And this is when, I think in this range is when it starts to get a little interesting. If my breakdown is correct, which I will have it on the screen for you guys as well. I think he'll make $46 million this year, $48 next year. And then I think around year 7 is when that gets crazy. Year 6 or 7 is when it goes to $62 million. And then it comes back down to 46 and 50. So if the Kansas City Chiefs were going to restructure or extend a contract, you would think it'd be around that year 7, year 8 mark. Well, 6, 7, you know, around that mark. But at the end of the day, for them to do it this soon, I don't know. It just doesn't seem likely. And also, with Patrick Mahomes' main goal set is to compete, I don't see him also requesting more money at this point. But at the end of the day, let's say he was. I don't think that phases the Kansas City Chiefs and in the position they put him in, because regardless, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to make Patrick Mahomes happy and they're going to give him the price point he deserves. But let's say, again, it's interesting because I don't know how it works because we don't see 10-year deals really throughout this NFL period. So can you really extend him with 7 years remaining? Because you would add an additional, 3 years, 3 years, and it may restructure the language on the contract. I don't know how that works. Or if you do restructure the contract on the language, doesn't that benefit the Kansas City Chiefs even more? Because like I mentioned, he's going to be due around $46 million this year. Well, you usually backload a lot of it. So at the end of the day, if you're going to restructure, that means that $46 million can go down to like 20 to 30. And then most of that money is towards the back end of the contract. So at the end of the day, the Kansas City Chiefs are still winning as well. I think we get caught up in a lot of these contract talks and even media aspect as well. The main thing when we see these huge contract numbers, specifically with most recent with Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson, you see the big 50 million. At the end of the day, that's just the headline of that. It's not what they're making every single year. Now, yes, Lamar Jackson's contract is structured differently than Jalen Hurts, but it's not as easy black and white as, oh, from 2022 to 2027, it's 50 million per year. No, that's not how it works. It could be 20, 30, 50, 60. It's just what it equals throughout that period. So to say, oh, Patrick Mahomes is going to get 60 million a year, is it really 60 million a year? He may have a contract to where it looks like that, but at the end of the day, the beginning of that could be the 30 to 40 million, and then the back end could be 60 to 80 million. You got to look more in depth in these contract details. And at the end of the day, just stop looking at the headlines. And it doesn't really even matter at the end of the day. And then when Florio says that Mahomes' contract is criminal and changed the landscape for any contract in the NFL for any QBs going forward, where? No one has a contract like Patrick Mahomes. So that doesn't even make sense. Even these contracts have been signed after Patrick Mahomes. As we mentioned, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and there's plenty more. And Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. We are not going to see another guy sign a 10-year deal. So how does that change the landscape? Patrick Mahomes is doing what's best and doing what puts him in a perfect position to win championships and hold up a Lombardi. Now, if other players want to do that, they are more than willing to do that. But you're going to see more than likely these guys taking in between 4 to 6 year deals to get their money, but also give them a little window too to help the team as well. Jalen Hurts' deal seems more friendly than Lamar Jackson's, but at the end of the day, you're playing in a 5-year window, so you're going to have more cap tied in than what Patrick Mahomes is through a 10-year span. So at the end of the day, I just don't see how it shifted. It was groundbreaking, earth-shattering when nobody else is doing it. That's just in one year and out the other. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But also, like I mentioned to start this video, if Patrick Mahomes wants to restructure, extend, I don't even know what it would be because I do not know how you rework a 10-year contract. But if he wants to re-up and get more money, the Kansas City Chiefs will honor that as well. But as he mentioned, he's not looking for that. And also, you got to focus on the outside, which Patrick Mahomes mentioned in that video as well. He's financially set with what he makes in football and what he makes in endorsements as well. The dude gets paid in multiple different avenues. You see him almost in every commercial. He's partial owner of 2 teams now, the Royals and Sporting KC, and also his wife Brittany too. It's like they are a household with a lot of money already. Just because it doesn't show it with an NFL contract doesn't mean that's not what he's initially making. At the end of the day, you're going to have to accept that Patrick Mahomes is here to win football games and win championships. Now, you may have hit the dartboard and he may get a contract extension, but also he's going to do something that benefits him, but also the team to make sure they will always continue to compete year in and year out. That's just the kind of player Patrick Mahomes is. It kind of relates to what Tom Brady used to do as well. We never seen Tom Brady be one of the highest paid quarterbacks out there, but he always knew, I'm going to keep my family healthy and keep happy and keep the team happy as well, to where we will keep continuing to compete. And at the end of the day, we know Patrick Mahomes is gunning for Tom Brady's rings. He has not shied away from it. It's not no secret. That is what he wants. And at the best, that's what he's going to try to do. So I believe the reports to an extent, but at the end of the day, he's not going to put the Kansas City Chiefs in a cap strap situation. He may sign a contract by week 1, but also Chiefs Kingdom's going to be happy with it as well. Now, since we talking contracts, since we talking money, let's focus in on Chris Jones as he is on a recruiting tour trying to bring back his best friend, Frank Clark, and Mike Pennell. As we all do know, Frank Clark was cut earlier in the offseason, but the Kansas City Chiefs and the players as well have not shied away about the possibility of Frank Clark returning. And I think Frank Clark, at the right price, basically a veteran minimum, I would welcome him back on this team. Now, I know all of Chiefs Kingdom doesn't agree with that because He is an inconsistent player at best, but once you get him in that playoff time, that swagger, the shark in the water, blood in the water, he is unleashed and he does his best. The reason why I would welcome Frank Clark back is because we've seen what kind of mentor he could be for George Karlaftis just last year, and he basically put him under his shoulder and gave him all the techniques. He would do the same for Felix Anudike-Uzomah, as well as this basically focus on Frank Clark just as a rotational pass rusher. This isn't someone you have to depend on and hope for production for 16 to 17 games, which I think is the best kind of role for Frank Clark, because at the end of the day, we've seen him have these stomach viruses which can just sneak up on him and then take him out and not have his best ability whatever Sunday it may be. If he has a limited snap count and he's not in there every single play and he's rotating with the guy, you may see a more explosive Frank Clark than what you normally do see. And I think that would be a huge, huge addition for this team. And at the end of the day, as we mentioned, and as Chiefs Kingdom always requests, you can never have too many pass rushers. Now, I know Chiefs Kingdom may want to see new faces, but at the end of the day, Frank Clark at this stage of his career as a rotational pass rusher, I think would be an A+ addition. And then, also to a surprise, Chris Jones went recruiting Mike Pennel. And I was like, oh, okay. Like Mike Pennel, he was with the Chicago Bears last year. The interesting thing about Pennel, I loved him during our championship run. He had that swagger, he had that mentality. He's just a fun personality, but also he knows how to produce. And a rotational snap as well, he was making plays for this Kansas City Chiefs D-line. As a veteran presence, I think that would be huge. And you also got guys like Coburn as well, Keandre Coburn, the rookie, and you got Derek Nottie as well. You're going to have a rotational defensive tackles on the other side of Chris Jones. So again, add that depth, add that experience. Make sure that D-line is ready to go through the whole regular season. That way when those veteran presence like Chris Jones, Frank Clark, Pennel come in during that playoff championship time, they will have them boys ready. I think those would be two very solid signings. But at the end of the day, the Kansas City Chiefs are kind of strapped against the cap right now. So, Chris Jones, are we close to a new deal? Please say we are. I hope that Chris Jones is really close to a contract extension. I believe if things haven't sped up or wrapped up, I think in the months of June and July, I think that's when this deal gets done and Chris Jones will become a Kansas City Chief for life. And at the end of the day, that helps free up room and that helps maybe bring in guys like Frank Clark, Mike Pennel, and some more veterans to this defense or even offense. I'm excited to see how this whole offseason and training camp unfolds, because when training camp comes in, that's when this gets serious. But with that, Chiefs Kingdom, I'm going to close this video off. You let me know how you feel about these Mahomes contract extension, restructure, adjustments, whatever you call it, rumors are going. And do you believe that will happen before week 1? Or do you believe Mahomes will stay on this contract long enough to where he's going to get enough Super Bowls and then he re-ups? Also, would you welcome Frank Clark back and Mike Pennel back? With that, I'm going to close out. Y'all take care. Peace.